Hello everyone. So for this video, we will talk about general quadratic trinomial or GQT. So let's try to recall first, what are the steps on how to factor polynomials? The first step is always to look for common factors among the terms of the polynomial. And if there is, factor it out. The second step now is to look at the number of terms of the polynomial. So we're now down to trinomial. So in our previous video, we're able to discuss how to determine whether it's factorable by PSD or not. The question is, what if it's not? It's not factorable by PSD. So you have last option, which is through general quadratic trinomial. But how do we do that? So in our general quadratic trinomial, it is more on trial and error. Okay? So it's always in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. Okay, the common. Or x squared plus bxy plus cy squared, where b and c are numerical coefficients. Okay. So in this part, let's start with the basic. X squared plus bx plus c. So we have here three sub-steps. So A, B, and C. So to better understand the three sub-steps, let's have an example. So notice that we have here x squared plus 5x plus 6. There are three terms. But if you will try to ask me, sir, is it factorable using PSD? So it's not, because the third term is not a perfect square. It's a 6. So automatically it's not. So the last option that you have, you can think of GQT, or general quadratic trinomial. You can think of it like trial and error. The first step is to write the given as the product of two binomials. So if you notice, the first term is x squared. The factors of x squared would be x times x. So that's why you will be putting x in our first terms in our answer. Now, the second step is to think of two numbers which, when multiplied, will be equal to c, and when added will be equal to b. So, pag sinasabi natin C, ito yung constant term, yung walang variable. In which, as of the moment, our C here is 6. Okay. And our B is what? Okay, the B is the numerical coefficient of the term with an X. Which is 5. So, ngayon daw, mag-iisip ka ng dalawang number in which, if you multiply it, it will result to 6. But when you add those two numbers, it will result to 5. So it's so-called as trial and error because not all the time that your first attempt would be the correct one. So for example, you can think of 6 times 1. 6 times 1 is 6. However, if you will add 6 and 1, the two numbers that you were thinking, 6 plus 1 is 7, which is not the B. So this is not the correct option. So this is your trial one and it's wrong. So proceed sa trial 2 mo. Okay. Think of another factor of 6. So, dalawang number which when you multiply it, it will result to 6. So pwedeng 3 times 2. Because 3 times 2 is 6. Then you check whether when you add it, it will result to 5. The B in our given. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So there you go. So alam na natin na yung dapat na factor na inisip natin would be 3 and 2. So in our C, write each of these two numbers as the second term of each of the binomial factors. So yun na din ang ating magiging second term. So plus 3 plus 2. So there you go. This is our correct answer. Tambalay lang natin ito. So if you're hesitant or you're not sure if your answer is correct, you can always do the reverse. You find the product of your answer and check whether it will go back to the given. Okay? So for example, x plus 3 times x plus 2, you can use FOIL method or distributive property to verify whether this is really the correct factors. Or okay, let's try another example. Let's have b here. The given is y squared minus 11y plus 30. So, alam natin na ito yung first term kasi siya yung may pinakamataas na exponent, variable na exponent, so y squared. Followed by this, and then the constant term with no variable at all. So, ito yung C natin. Yung may literal coefficient na exponent na 1, that's our second term. So, yung numerical coefficient niya, that's our B. So, our B is 11. Then it's just y squared. So, we're just starting with this very basic one, ha? So, automatically, you write it as, okay, hindi x palagi. Since yung variable na ginamit dito, y, so you'll be using y as well as your first terms. Then now, you follow B, you make sure that you will choose two numbers. When you multiply them, it will result to 11. But when you add them, it will result them, when you multiply them, wait lang, burahin ko lang. Ayan. We make sure that when we multiply them, it will result to our C. But when we add them, it will result to our B, which is 11. But take note, this is minus 11, so it must be negative 11 as well. Okay. Now, if you think of two numbers which are all positive, it is impossible for it to become a negative. So you have to explore the factors which are negative in here. So for 30, let's have trial 1. Okay, let's say you might be thinking of 10 and 3 because 10 times 3 is 30. But again, hindi pwedeng positive lahat. Because when we try to add them, it will result to a positive number as well. But the B here is negative. So, perhaps you can explore using negative 10 times negative 3. It's positive times negative times negative is positive. So negative 10 times negative 3 is positive 30. That's correct. But let's figure out what happens when we add them. So you have to master your rules in operation on integers. Okay, so review on that. So negative 10 plus negative 3, they have the same sign, so that means you're supposed to add the 10 and the 3. So that's 13. And copy the common sign negative. However, the B is negative 11, not negative 30. So hindi tama yung trial 1 mo. Ayan. So ito yung medyo challenging because you will really have to do trial and error. So you figure out some other factors in which when you multiply them, it will result to the C, and when you add them, it will result to the B. Okay. So for that, you can think of what? You can think of negative 5 and negative 6. When you multiply negative 5 and negative 6, what will be the result? That's 30. That's your C. So that's correct. Make sure that when you add them, it will result to the B. Negative 5 plus negative 6 is negative 11. So there you go. When you multiply these two numbers, it will result to the C. If you add them, it will result to the B. So the correct factors are negative 5 and negative 6. So you just have to follow the third step. You have to put it here. So y minus 5, y minus 6. There you go. This is our answer. Okay, let's have another example. So w squared plus 2wy minus 35y y squared. So this is a little bit of challenging. So you really have to be patient in terms of finding out the factor. So at the very beginning, it would be quite difficult. But since you'll be using it time to time until you reach college, you will get used to it. And you'll be, in terms of speed, you'll be faster. So you just have to be patient. So sa ngayon, medyo mataas talaga yung oras na kailangan nyo. So my best advice for you to understand how to factor is to practice. The key here is practice. So here, what do we do? The first term is w squared. So the numerical coefficient is just 1. That's why it's just easy. Automatically, w squared is just w times w. That's why we're putting w here in your answer. Now, in our C, the C now is negative 35. The B now is 2. Okay, now, follow the next step. B. Think of two numbers. When you multiply, it will result to C. But when you add them, it will result to 2. Okay, let's try. Let's have a trial 1. Okay, think of two numbers in which when you multiply them, it will result to negative 35. So you can think of course, the very basic one. 1 times negative 35. But once we add them, it will result to negative 34. In which, yung B natin 2 naman. So, your trial 1 is wrong. Okay, let's try another one. Think of two numbers again. When you multiply them, it will result um, to negative 35. Okay. Well, actually, pwede ding swap. Okay? Instead of having negative, instead of giving the negative to the 35, you can have it with the 1. So negative 1 times 35, you will still get the same number, negative 35. But observe this one. If you add negative 1 plus 35, that's 34. Okay? See the difference in our trial 1 and trial 2? When we add them, 1 times negative 35, when we add them, that's negative 34. In our trial 2, we just interchange the signs. So negative 1 plus 35 is now 34. So perhaps you have to explore on that as well in the future. But this is not yet the answer as well. Because the B is 2, not a 34. Okay, so try another one. So trial 4. O, diba? You really need patience in here once you will try to find the factors. So figure out another way. So negative 35 can be negative 7 times 5. That's negative 35. But when you add negative 7 plus 5, that would be negative 2. You're almost there. It's just that the sign is negative in our trial, but the given is positive 2. So that means yung issue lang natin is baka nabaliktad lang yung sign. So in our trial 4, what we will do now is, instead of 7 becomes negative, the 5 becomes negative. So 7 times negative 5, that's negative 35. But 7 plus negative 5 is what? That's positive 2. So there you go. The correct answer is the trial 4 must be 7 and negative 5. So you put 7 in here and negative 5 in here. Now, don't forget, in our third term, there's a y squared. So in our y squared, that's factorable as y times y. So dapat yung second term din natin sa mga binomials, we have to put y as well. Okay? So that when you multiply it y times y, you'll get y squared. So this is not the correct answer. W plus 7y times the quantity of w minus 5y. So let's have an example here without our steps anymore. So we have x cubed plus 9x squared plus 20x. So don't forget, in factoring, the first step is always to find the common factor. So may common factor ba tayo sa 3 terms natin? Yes. Lahat sila may x. So you factor out the x, what will be left in our first term if we factor out 1x out of the 3 x's? So yung matitira na lang, dalawang x. Our second term, 9x squared, since we factor out one of its x, so what will be left is just 9x. Then third term, 20x, just 20. Now, there are 3 terms. So that's our second step. 3 terms, you have PST or GQT. But it's not PST because 20 is not a perfect square, the third term. So you'll automatically think of your GQT or trial and error. So in your trial and error, there must be 2 binomials. First term would always be x because x squared is x times x. Problema na lang natin is ano ba yung magiging second term natin? So take note, our C in our given is 20. The B is 9. So think of 2 numbers which when you multiply them it will result to 20, but when you add them it will result to a 9. Okay, so in my end, I already know what's the perfect combination. But of course, you can always do trial and error. So for example, you can think of it as 10 times 2. 10 times 2 is 20. The problem is when you add them, it's 12, which is not the B. So trial 1 is wrong. So what must be the correct combination? It must be 4 times 5. 4 times 5 is 20, but when you add it, it's equal to 9, which is our B. So the correct combination is plus 4, then plus 5. So this is the correct answer. Okay, let's have example B. First, find the GCF. The GCF here is 2. So factor out the 2. What will be left is just, in our first term, that's x squared. In our 16 divided by 2, since we factor out the 2, so that would become negative 8, then x. Last term, wala naman siyang x, kaya hindi natin finactor out si x. So 30 divided by 2 is 15. Now, there are 3 terms. It's a trinomial, so you have an option PST or GQT. Okay, hindi siya PST because the 15 here is not a perfect square. So automatically, you'll choose GQT, trial and error. So the C here is 15. The B here is negative 8. So dapat dalawang binomial ang expected factor natin. So x squared is x times x. And then yung 15 naman natin, at saka negative 8, magta-trial and error tayo. So yung trial 1 natin, what if agad-agad nakuha natin? Okay, since negative si B, so medyo mag-iisip ka ng mga negative. So hindi pwedeng positive lang. So si C, 15, negative 5 times negative 3. O, anong negative 5 times negative 3? That's positive 15. But when you add them, that's negative 8, which is the B. So x minus 5, then x minus 3. There you go. Now let's look into a more challenging situation in which our leading term or the leading coefficient is not anymore a 1. Kasi kanina, palaging 1x squared. So what if hindi naman siya 1x squared? What if it is another number? As an example, we have here 6x squared plus 17x plus 12. So based from our form here, it seems like our 6 is A, our B is 17. Ayan, mali na naman yung nasulat ko. Ayan. 17 is our B. Then our constant term, walang x or variable, that's our C. Okay, so it's very important to identify which one is A, which one is B, which one is C. So now, to factor this, the ax squared must be the product of the first terms of the binomial factors. So medyo magta-trial and error din tayo dito. So hindi palagi na yung first trial natin tama kaagad. So you have to be patient in terms of figure out the correct factors. So, following A, let's say our trial 1, you will think of factors of 6x squared as 6x times x. Okay? So what if that's what we will use? So automatically in our answer, we're expecting that this is 6x, this is x. 6x times x, that would be 6x squared. Okay? Then let's proceed to B. Bx must be the sum of the product of the outer and the product of the inner terms. So medyo magta-trial ka talaga. So for us to do the B, let's proceed to C first. So the C naman must be the product of the second terms of the binomial factors. So I think in my end, I would rather do the C first. Because if you do that, you look at the C and then choose some factors for 12. Let's say I'll choose 3 and 4. Say plus lahat. So my first trial is 6x plus 3 times the quantity of x plus 4. So yung bx daw natin, itong 17x, dapat daw sum ng inner at saka outer term. So ito yung inner. So 3 times x, 3x. Outer term, 6x times 4. That would be 6x times 4 is 24. However, if you add them, 3x plus 24x, that would become 27x. Yung bx natin, or middle term natin sa given, 17x, hindi 27x. So that means your trial 1 is wrong. So you need to do another trial. Okay? Same pattern. Dalawang binomial. The first terms must be the factors of our ax squared, yung first term ng given natin. So perhaps in my end, I will try 3x and 2x this time. Because 3x times 2x is 6x squared. Now, how about the C? The C is 12. So ikaw din bahala. In terms of positioning as well, it will matter. So let's say 4 times 3. Because 4 times 3 is 12. Siguro lagay natin si 4 dito, 3 naman dito. Plus, plus. This is our trial 2. So yun pa rin. So middle terms or inner terms, 4 times 2x, 8x. Outer terms, 9x. 8x plus 9x. Okay, 8 plus 9, that would be 17. 17x. So there you go. The middle term or the second term of our given is 17x. The correct answer. The correct factored form is 3x plus 4 times the quantity of 2x plus 3. Let's try another one. So we have here 5w squared minus 23wz minus 10z squared. So yun pa rin, no? Trial and error pa rin tayo. So ito yung ax squared natin. So let's say our trial 1, we figure out of a factor of 5w squared. Wala namang iba, so it's just 5 times 1. So mas madali siya compared sa kanina. So that would be 5w times w. Then proceed ka sa c mo dito. Problema ngayon may z na naman. So that means you just have to decide, figure out the factors of negative 10. By the way, it's negative 10 because there's a minus in here. So we can consider that as a sign. So negative 10, pwedeng negative 2. Pwede ding positive 5 yung partner niya. Kasi negative 2 times 5, negative 10. Don't forget there's a z, so z squared. So lagyan mo din ng z. Because z times z is z squared. Okay, ayan. So i-check natin. Multiply the inner terms. Negative 2z times w is negative 2wz. Then, outer terms, 5w times 5z, so 25wz. If you add them, these are like terms. Both terms has wz as a literal coefficient. So negative 2wz plus 25wz, it's 23wz. Okay, so the question now is, negative 23wz yung middle term natin. So yung issue lang nito, sign lang naman. So ibig sabihin nito, may nabaliktad ka lang. Okay? So your trial 1 is wrong, but you're almost there. So perhaps what you will do now is to interchange the sign. Pwede din kasing, instead of having negative, instead of 2z as the negative, that's the positive term, and the other one, 5z, becomes the negative. Okay, now let's check. 2z times w, 2wz. Outer terms, 5w times negative 5z, negative 25wz. If you add them, 2 plus negative 25, so different sign subtract, so 23. Then, mas malaki si 25 in terms of its absolute value. So, kaya ikakopy natin yung sign niya. Negative. In which it's already the middle term. So, therefore, this is our final answer. Quantity of 5w plus 2z times the quantity of w minus 5z. Okay. For the next video, we will be talking about how to factor using the method by grouping.